Hello guys, it's me Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Wailords, bringing you a draft recap. We have just entered Series 7 of the Victory Draft League V-Create Season 7. So yeah, it's another, once again, it is no Dynamax, Series 10 rules, no restricted, so it's going to be some fun. We have got an interesting team. We are looking to partially build upon what we did last season. We had a good season last season. We managed to make all the way to finals, just losing out to the ever-talented Goomer and the Bolted Bashers. Bit of a hard loss in the final, but we had a good run. And yeah, so I just thought I'd do a quick team recap, nothing too intense. Only got a few minutes really to record this, so we'll just get straight to it, shall we? So yeah, this is the team reveal. This is the team that we have drafted. So I'll start with what we drafted first. I wanted to, going into this draft, I definitely wanted to use either Arcanine or basically I wanted to do this core between Slowking and Arcanine. I was really wanting to use Arcanine. Because Arcanine is a very familiar mon to me, I really wanted to change what type of bulky water type I was going to use. So I decided straight from the gate I was always going to be drafting either Slowking or Slowbro. And I decided to go with Slowking because if I drafted Arcanine, I've got the Intimidate, and then I've got Slowking there who's got a higher special defense and really benefits from having an Intimidate mon on the team. So that was the idea. So I was 13th pick, which is right in the middle of the 24 coach draft. And I didn't expect to get any amazing tier 1s back to me. But when it came down to us, like after a few picks such as Cramorant and a few others that were picked in the first round, I managed to get Incineroar as an option. And I started thinking, well, I'm really needing a dark type anyway. My team plans up to that point was Slowking plus Arcanine plus a high tier dark type, so I could swap in for my Ghost and Dark weakness on Slowking. Because I really like bulky waters, and Slowking is bulky water, but having that extra Ghost and Dark weakness to it really makes it difficult. The really good thing about bulky waters is the fact that they have so few type weaknesses, and that means they can be covered by maybe one or two mons defensively. And so with Incineroar being available, I decided that could be really good because one, Incineroar is known as one of the best pivot mons in VGC, and the fact that its type covers 3 of my Slowking's weaknesses, and the fact that Slowking is a regenerator mon meant that I can use a pivot mon such as Arcanine with Intimidate and Parting Shot and all the pivot moves like U-turn, and swap it in with Slowking in that so that I can get regen off and re-heal. So I picked Incineroar as my first pick, and then it got back to me, and yeah, I could have gone for some better tier mons. I don't think Slowking was going to go very soon anyway, but it was a mon that I really wanted to use, so I just picked it up straight away in tier 2, in round 2. And that established this really cool core I had, where they cover each other quite well defensively. Slowking obviously resisting fighting and water, Incineroar resisting dark, ghost, and grass for Slowking. So it only meant really they had electric as a weakness between them and ground, which Slowking covers the ground and rock weakness of Incineroar with water type moves anyway. So I was really happy with this little call I had. It was a little bit slower, and I did realise straight away that having such a slow tier 1 meant that I'm probably going to be drafting quite a slow bulky team, and so that's kind of what I lent into. Round 3 comes around, and there's this mono flying team going around, and I'm aware of this, and I'm like, I kind of want a decent steel type. I'm always getting my steel and fire types near the end of the draft, and I always feel a little bit underwhelmed by my steel or fire type that I get. Like last season I got Rapidash. I've had Rapidash 2 seasons in VDL, so I always wanted a stronger fire type this time around to begin with. And last season I ended up with Steelix as my steel type, and I love Steelix. It was good, but it was very good on my terrain mode team. So I decided to get Corviknight because it was a steel type. It was a flying type that wasn't weak to rock for Incineroar, and it also gave me a ground immunity, as well as being a steel type with a ground immunity. So I thought that was pretty good. I understood that it was going to share a weakness with the Slowking, so I do have to be careful about that electric weakness. But I did like what Corviknight had to offer. It has the fire checks with Slowking and Incineroar. It's bulky. It's got setup potential. It's got mirror armor to reflect back intimidates to the opponent. It's got unnerve, meaning that I can stop the berries from proccing. So I really liked Corviknight. I wanted to use it last season, so I thought, yeah, let's draft it now and just run with it, you know. Moving on from Corviknight, I drafted Spiritomb as my 4th pick, and I dropped straight down into tier 4 to get that. And the reason being is because I felt like Spiritomb, it was giving me a ghost type that didn't share weakness with my psychic type. It wasn't weak to ghost, it's not weak to dark, and it's a really interesting setup mod. It's got a few cool coverage moves. Well, not really so much coverage, but it's got a very cool utility moves, and the fact that it's got Snarl, Sucker Punch, it gets Dark Pulse flinches, it gets obviously strong Shadow Balls, it gets set up with like Calm Mind, it gets a few disruption moves. I like Hypnosis and stuff, and I felt like Spiritomb would be an interesting pick. It's very slow, which meant that it's often enough not to be moving first at all, unless I run a Trick Room set with the Slowking. But again, that's another interesting thing. Like Slowking and Spiritomb now don't even share that weakness, so I can run a Ghost type and a Psychic type, and they don't run into type problems. So yeah, I was really happy to get the Spiritomb pick up. I didn't think it was going to be drafted too early, but I just thought I'd get it now because I knew it was a mod I definitely wanted. I was still unsure at this point what I wanted to do the rest of my draft, but I was confident that Spiritomb was what I wanted to do. So I grabbed the Spiritomb. Moving on from the Spiritomb pick, I'm unsure what I want to do, and Mamoswine has just been taken up, and I thought it'd be really interesting to pick up my Ice type, which in fact isn't even on here at the moment. I picked up Piloswine, and I think that was a little bit of a mistake. I thought Piloswine might get picked up a little bit soon, and I probably could have waited a little bit, and it's kind of ruined my draft a little bit picking up Piloswine so early, especially with the fact that, as you can see here, I've not even drafted it. I traded it away. And I picked up Piloswine thinking I definitely wanted an Ice type. I thought Ground type offensive was pretty cool. I've used Mamoswine in 2 leagues before, and Mamoswine, don't get me wrong, is a brilliant mod. I think it's really, really good, really a good offensive pressure. I was questionable over the fact that Piloswine has only got 100 attack compared to Mamoswine's 130, but like you're getting an even bulkier mon with Eviolite, which means that its living attacks way more than what Mamoswine can, because obviously Mamoswine's best stat is its HP, and Piloswine's only like 10 below that, and the defenses are pretty good, to be fair. So with an Eviolite, it can actually take a lot of hits, especially like abilities like Thick Fat, which reduces like fire damage. So I was really happy to get the Piloswine at the time. But then I ended up losing picks because I took the Piloswine. So my initial draft plan was to have Dragalge and Sylveon as my extra tier 2 and my normal tier 3. And unfortunately, I was in the process of deciding, well, I wanted either Roserade, Dragalge, Sylveon, or Jolteon next as one of my 4 picks. And I kind of fell asleep whilst trying to make that decision. And as a result, I got skipped in the draft pick order, and after being skipped, both Dragalge and Sylveon got picked up. So if I hadn't already picked Piloswine and picked either Dragalge or Sylveon, or I had not fallen asleep and I had made my pick in time, then I could have got both of those mons before they got sniped from me. So it was a little bit, it was my own fault, 100%. So it kind of made things a little bit more difficult. In the end, I ended up picking up both Jolteon and Roserade in the makeup in the next turn when it got to me. And I wanted Roserade because, in my opinion, it can be quite threatening to mons like Tapu Fini, which can be really difficult to like deal with. Like Water Fairy types are really annoying to break because of their coverage. Water and Fairy is able to hit pretty much every type combination, except for like a limited few, and Grass and Poison is one of those few. So like Roserade gets to hit offensively, and that's another reason why I really like Dragalge as well, because Dragalge also has that resistance to water and fairy, and we've seen in the past, like Tapu Fini is one of the most offensive mons and defensive mons. Like it always ends up being like 2 seasons in a row it's been kill leader. So having good checks to a mon like Tapu Fini is crucial, and lo and behold, out of all the teams that I could have faced, out of all the 24 teams, I faced the Tapu Fini team. So really would have been good to have had that Dragalge, to be honest, because if I remember facing off against it last season, I had Tapu Fini last season, and I faced off against a Dragalge, and I actually found it really difficult. Even though I could use like Carmine sets, it was really difficult to face off against. So I got Jolteon because if I wanted a 130, like I wanted that 130 base speed mon. I wanted a mon that could be really fast and move, because my team was already looking pretty slow, and that's also why I grabbed Roserade, because it's got a 90 base speed. It moves typically faster than your average grass type, and it's got decent special defense, and so its defense is helped out by Incineroar intimidates and stuff like Will-O-Wisps and from both Spiritomb and Incineroar. So that was the idea there. I also wanted an offensive poison type to be able to deal with some of the fairies, so that I don't always have to rely on Corviknight to try and break them. So I'm really happy with the Roserade pick. Jolteon was a little bit more undecided. I wasn't sure if I wanted Jolteon or Boltund or something. Personally, I think maybe I could have gone for a better mon in like Galvantula or something in one of the lower tiers, because at least, even though I don't have that speed control, even though I don't have that high speed of like 130, I'm still hitting 108, and I'm getting a really reliable speed control option in Electroweb Galvantula. But as you can see, I ended up trading that one out anyway, Jolteon. So we move on now, coming to the final few picks. I've got 4 picks left to make, and I decided to go for, just grab my fighting type. I really wanted to use Heracross. I thought Heracross is a really interesting one to use. So I picked up Heracross from a tier 4. It's not my typical usage of it like a fighting type, but a lot of the time I like my fighting types fast with utility. Heracross just makes up this really offensive. Yeah, it's weak to flying, so that's something you've obviously got to be careful of. I do have really good switchings over to flying types like Corviknight and Jolteon at that time. And I think since then I've even increased that with some trades I've made. Also, yeah, as you can see, like Aurorus, its Hail mode really threatens some flying types as well, so I think that's okay. The Heracross though is really good. It's a decent Scarf mon. It's very good Focus Sash. It's got Flame Orb if you really want to run that strategy. I'm not really going to go into many of the strats I've got involved with this team, but I think Heracross could be really good. The only downside I think I have with Heracross is that I don't have a really fast Tailwind setter to really enable Heracross, because I do believe Heracross shines best when it's moving first and able to pick up those KOs and avoid getting hit by those flying types. But having a monotype flying team, a lot of Tailwind setters were getting scooped up off the board, especially some of the fast ones. So Heracross is a decent mon. I think it fills in a few roles. It's psychic types, dark types. It's really good for a fighting type, like it's able to hit those type of types. And it's got strong stabs like Megaport, close combat, and it's got decent coverage as well. It gets Moxie as an ability, so it can steamroll on itself if left unchecked. So then we come down to the final 3 picks, and I'm there thinking, well, my modes now have kind of gone. I've still got that tier 2 and tier 3 slot open, and I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm trying to look for a dragon type that fits in, but all the good dragon types are gone. I didn't really want Drampa again. Haxorus just got picked up, and I'm like, defensively, I think I might have to sacrifice having no fairy or dragon type. Like offensive fairy is obviously really sought after. I could really do with that, but I didn't really want to pick up another Aromatisse again, which is a possible tier 2. I felt like I've used Aromatisse a few too many times, so I kind of wanted to diversify what I was using this season, and so I decided to just go with the rain mode. So I noticed that on the board, Pelipper is 100% overpriced. It's tier 2 at the moment, and it is. Yes, so as I was saying, I just had to take a little break there for a moment. The Pelipper pick, by no means do I think it's a valuable tier 2. I mean, it is overpriced. It went up a tier from last season, and as a Pokemon in isolation, it's probably on the underpowered level of tier 2. However, it does provide me with a tier 2 that gives me this really interesting mode. I can then go for Seismitoad for a rain mode. And I already had that ground type with Piloswine, but I decided in that moment that my last picks, I would end up trading Piloswine out in Grace for either Miltank or Bouffant, and we'll get to that in a moment. So I picked up Pelipper. It was another flying type to go with Corviknight. I know I'm doubling up on types, doubling up on electric weaknesses. However, as we saw last season from Guma, having a Mon that's weak to electric, like 4 times weak to electric, like Gyarados, and a ground and water type like Swampert, they work really well together because it was so difficult to be able to hit one for super effective and not hit the other, you know? So it meant that usually if you have a water type, you end up going one route or another when prepping against. You either go for an electric type or you go for a grass type coverage. Sometimes you try and split the coverage a little bit, but when you've got a Mon that's immune to electric in Seismitoad, and then a Mon that is resistant and stab super effective against grass in Pelipper, it creates this really interesting conflict for opponents to prep against. I do feel like my team is a little bit more weak to the electric type though, because of Corviknight and Slowking. But what's really interesting about the Pelipper pickup is that it performs a completely different role to Corviknight in my opinion. Corviknight's there to set Tailwind, it can do some setup with screens if I really wanted to, it's there to be bulky, it can bulk up, it can iron defense, body press, and physical flying type moves, physical steel moves, and really just absorb hits on the physical side. Wherefore Pelipper is, again, it's more physically bulky, I believe, but it's there to do a little bit more damage, I would say. It can do things like knock off, it can U-turn, it does get access to soak, I believe. And it does get like Icy Wind and stuff. And unfortunately, I feel like its speed tier is just too low, like 65, I think its base speed is, which means it only maxes out at around 128 speed, which is, I prefer a Mon that's base speed 70 because of that amount means that it's a good choice scarf Mon. You can get decent choice scarf Mons at like base 60 if you're going against teams that haven't got a 130 base speed Mon, but in order to beat the teams with base 130 speed, especially for teams like with Tapu Koko and Jolteon and Aerodactyl, which are all super effective against Pelipper, then you kind of want to be hitting that benchmark where it's just above. Like a base 70 Mon, max speed Jolly would be 201 with a choice scarf. So I do feel like the Pelipper is a little bit of an underpowered pick. I'm not overly keen on it, but we'll see. Seismitoad I really like because of it covered a few weaknesses I had. The water and ground typing is a good defensive typing in my opinion. It's seen with Gastrodon, it's very defensive. Although Gastrodon does get Storm Drain, so it is giving that extra immunity. Seismitoad is also got Water Absorb, and that means that I can use it as quite a defensive Mon because it is immune to the water attacks. It's immune to electric, and it's only actually weak to grass, which, to be fair, my team does deter quite well with having 2 flying types, a fire type, a hail mode, a grass and poison type, a bug and fighting type, and even a Sapsip Mon. So I feel like Seismitoad is well supported defensively, as well as providing a bit of offensive pressure. It can be run both physical or special. Usually it does need a little bit of help to be on its damage output, but most of the time rain boosted moves is going to be pretty powerful. So I do like the Seismitoad pickup. I've used it a few times in a recent tournament, so only like a draft tournament, so I think Seismitoad could be an interesting pick if I can support it well. So then we decide to make the Aurora's pick, and at the time I was just like, I didn't know what to pick from tier 5. I've always liked the Aurora's line, like I like Aurora or Laura, whatever it's called. I refer to it as Ice Dino. What I really like about this Mon is that it's provides me with a type, 2 types that I didn't already have. Like, I'm already certain that I'm going to be swapping out Piloswine, and having Rock Stab and Ice Stab can be pretty decent. Its speed tier is a little bit underwhelming. It is like 58 speed, and it does have a 4 times weakness to both steel and fighting. However, I don't currently have a single Mon on my team that is weak to steel, so I felt pretty confident with Aurora's on that side. I don't really have a load of mons that rely on Focus Sash, so Morix can rely on Focus Sash a little bit better. And fighting, yes, I do have a few mons that are weak to fighting, like Miltank, the Ice mode, and Incineroar, but I do have a decent Ghost switching, I do have 2 flying types, and a Bug type, and a Poison type, so defensively we're doing pretty well, as well as having Intimidate pressure to really lower those fighting type damage outputs. So I feel like Morris is pretty well supported, and the reason why I wanted it is because I decided that with Roserade on the team, like Roserade's coverage is mediocre. It gets access to like Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball, Leaf Storm, obviously, Sludge Bomb, Extra Sensory, and that's kind of its limit with what type of special offensive moves it can run. But with Aurora set in Hail or Pelipper set in Rain, it then gets access to weather moves with Weather Ball. So it's able to get Weather Ball Ice type and Weather Ball Rain, and that really helps Roserade pick off like flying types with the ice coverage, or pick off fire types with the water coverage. So I feel like it just increases the versatility of like Roserade, say. You can also run Weather Ball Seismitoad, Weather Ball Aurorus, which is pretty interesting and fun. So yeah, going in. So that was the end of my actual draft. I still had Piloswine on the team. I still had the Jolteon on my team. So going into trades, I knew it 100%. As soon as Brace hit happened, I wanted to trade out Piloswine, and I wanted either Bouffalante or Miltank. And they provided similar roles. I wanted one of those two because they gave me a Sap Sipper Mon for a switch in for Seismitoad. But also, I kind of like the Miltank idea because it gave me Thick Fat, which Piloswine had, which meant I still had an extra resistance to fire and ice, which is really nice, especially considering I had picked up this Aurorus for Hail and potentially picking up a later Hail Mon. So the Miltank also gets Scrappy as well, which means it can go for just like I really want to. I can't be intimidated, and I can go for a setup with maybe Body Press to just hit everything with, or normal type move. And between normal and fighting, it can pretty much hit every type combination, especially with the ability Scrappy. So it's also got good recovery in Milk Drink. It can Curse Up. It can. It's fast Thunder Waves. Its base speed is 100 as well. I chose to go for Miltank over Bouffalante, even though Bouffalante I believe is more my play style with that big damage output like Reckless Head Charge. I used it last season, and I kind of wanted, as I say, going into this draft to be a more diverse team, a team that I've never really used before. So, and also because I was deciding to drop Jolteon, I kind of needed the Miltank because I don't have currently any mons that are above 100 base speed. Up to that point, Roserade would be my fastest mon, and so by picking Miltank, at least I hit that 100 base speed. So I can outspeed a few things. I can Choice Scarf to outspeed. It does get access to speed control in the form of Icy Wind and Thunder Wave, which is really nice for the Miltank. I'm not sure how useful Miltank will end up being through my season, but I do appreciate the 3 really good abilities it gets and some of its coverage and support. It also gets access to like Helping Hand, which is really nice as well. We then ended up changing out Jolteon for Arctozolt because Arctozolt got dropped from one of the other teams. The only other Hail abuser at that point available was Sandslash, and I didn't really want Sandslash because that meant I had 2 of my Hail setters, Hail mode, 2 mons in the Hail mode would be 4 times a week to fighting, and I didn't really think that would be a good idea. Plus, I feel Sandslash can be a bit underwhelming. Where for Arctozolt, as slow as it may be, base 55 speed, in Hail, I think it can reach 224. Its overall speed, which is pretty quick. It's able to outspeed mons like Pheromosa. So that's decent enough for a weather, like a fast rain for fast weather. It also gets a really offensive move in Bolt Beak, which is really nice. It still gets Volt Absorb, so it replaces Jolteon's Volt Absorb there, which is really nice. It allows for me to still run it as a electric check. It gets access to Earth Power or Stomping Tantrum, which is a really good coverage move for Arctozolt to have, especially if I'm using it as a electric type counter. And obviously you can run it with Blizzard or Icicle Crash, so it can be run both physically or specially. It can, so it was I thought it'd be a more synergistic pick than what Jolteon was being. Like Jolteon felt a little bit more slapped on there. And the only reason why I had Jolteon really with the Aurorus is because I could go for a fast round with refrigerate round with Aurorus and make Aurorus go even faster and basically be hitting a 120 ice type move off really fast. So, which I can still do elsewhere, but it just requires a little bit more investment to be able to do something like that. So I really like the Artazol pickup. I do feel like the weather modes, although they become they draw your attention to my team as being, oh, it's hail mode, oh, it's rain mode, and then a few of the good picks around it, especially that top 3 mons at the top, Incineroar, King, and Corviknight, like providing that defensive core. Although I do have that, I don't really want my team to be based around just weather this season. Like, just because I have these weather modes doesn't mean I'm going to solely rely on weather to win matches, or at least that's not going to be my objective this season. Something I do really like though, and it can be conflicting to be able to say, oh, you've got 2 weather modes, it can be a little bit conflicting. Like, you might want to set one up, but then you can't have the other one set up, and if you bring them on, then they override each other. But what I really like is that Seismitoad gets Swift Swim and access to Hail, and Arctozolt gets Slush Rush and access to Rain Dance. So they can both be, I can lead Seismitoad with Rain and then set up the Hail ready for the Arctozolt back if I feel like the Seismitoad gets disrupted or something. So there's a lot of synergy there that can be used. And obviously the rain mode allows me to protect my Corviknight a little bit better, Heracross a little bit better, Roserade a little bit better from fire type attacks, which I would be slightly weak to otherwise. It also protects Arctozolt and Aurorus, so I do have like 4 mons weak to, well, Aurorus is technically neutral to fire. So I do have 4 mons weak to fire, but the rain mode really helps protect those. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the team. There are a couple of mons that I feel a bit underwhelmed by initially, like Pelipper and Arctozolt, and maybe Aurorus, but Aurorus it's a tier 5. There's only so much you can really get from value-wise from tier 5 mons. So, and the fact that it's even providing some sort of a role in my team, it's pretty useful to have. I do think I like the team slightly better than some of my picks from last season. There was a lot of mid-tier picks that I wasn't overly pleased with. Like, yes, I enjoyed Steelix. Yes, I enjoyed Morpeko for a bit, but I felt like my tier 5s were a little bit underwhelming in Rapidash, although it's okay. The Morpeko pick, I ended up trading out for the Raichu later on in the season, and I did have a lot of frail mons in the season. Like, I had Raichu, Rapidash isn't exactly defensive, so a lot of my mons couldn't really take hits, and they had to be fast, had to hit hard, had to hit quick. I did have a few bulky mons like Cofagrigus and stuff, which was really nice to have, and Tapu Fini. But this season I've kind of gone for a little bit more bulky, a little bit slower team overall. But that's not to say that I think that my team can't be fast. Like, I've got 2 Tailwind options, I've got 2 different weather modes, both of which Arctozolt and Seismitoad aren't weak to the same thing. So I could lead Hail, or I could lead Seismitoad Rain, and the opponent has to be like, well, if I lead my Grass type, then I'm going to get hit by my Ice type, the Ice types. If I lead Electric type, then I could get hit by the Ice types, or Seismitoad. If I try and hit the Fire types or Fighter types, I can be hit by Pelipper with Flying or Seismitoad with Water Ground. So I do think that the 2 weather modes do help each other out a lot, especially in prep. The opponent really has to struggle to think what I'm going to be bringing. I do feel like the rain mode takes away from what I really wanted to try this season, which was my Slowking. I really wanted Slowking to do well, and I do feel like it's going to be a little bit harder to run, but it might take the pressure off from running Slowking as an offensive water type at times. So I can go for a little bit more setup maybe, or I can go for a little bit more controlled play here and there with Slowking. What I really like about Slowking is that it gets access to all the moves I like in a water type, like Calm Mind, Skull. It gets really good coverage allowing it to hit other water types, which a lot of bulky water types can't actually do. It gets Trick Room, so it's just an automatic Trick Room setter, but most importantly, it gets reliable recovery and slack off. So it means that I can run these bulky sets, maybe one move attack sets with like Calm Mind, Slack Off, Protect, and maybe like one attack, and it can just sit there and absorb hits. So all in all, I do really like the team. We will see how it goes. I'm really excited to use some of these mons. Like, I'm really excited to use Spiritomb that I've learned to try and use recently. Rose Raid I've only ever used in singles, and the rest of the team I've never used in Draft League before, which isn't exactly something, like, I've always gone back onto like a comfort pick in VDL, like a few mons. Like, I fell back on like Dramper, or I fell back on Cobalion one season. Last season I fell back on Raichu and Mian Xiao and stuff like that, mons that I really like to use and I've used many times before. So it'll be really good fun this season to just try out a new team, and I know it's going to be difficult. I don't think, even if I have the best matchup in the world into some of these teams, I do think that I will be struggling to get to grips with the team initially, and I might not do overly well this season, and that's okay, because I'm just trying to have fun with a new team, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. As I say, I'm hoping to. I haven't revealed too much about my team. I didn't really want to reveal too much because it's going to be hard enough prepping the season without giving away all my strats. But I hope you stick through and listen to this video, and I hope you enjoy the matches that are going to be coming onto the channel in the next few weeks. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and see you again.